When you see a vision of something that you want, or worse, you see a photo of your reality, something changes, or at least in my case it did. Friend, here's something I don't know if you know. While the podcast was a thought of mine for a long time, Thinking of Me absolutely could not be doing this without our very own Wizard of Oz, Kyle, at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions. Kyle's turnaround time, dedication and level of service means that I never have to second guess or worry about the level of support in getting our messaging out to you. If you're curious as to starting your own podcast, or just want to see how it might spread your message, reach out to Kyle at kylegoodnight.com or check our show notes. I mean it when I say that we couldn't be doing this without him. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Lauren's Thoughts, as we open season 2 with a series of Lauren's Thoughts on a Tuesday and our guest speakers on a Thursday. And the reason I decided to do this, friend, is while we learn collectively, it's also important of all the origins of Thinking of Me to keep a thread, as I call them, on what's actually happening right now. And I can't lead if not by example, and it began for me with playing with a pen, as I always say. And in moving Thinking of Me to Thinking of Me podcast and sharing some of those thoughts out loud, not only do I get to hear them back, but you get to hear them too now, and that can only be a good thing, I hope. So today I want to think and talk about what it means to have someone who knows you. And I'd like to dedicate this episode to Achievable Fitness 365. I'd like to get dedicated to Jay Farrell, who, as my coach, more than 4 years ago, began the process of helping me to go from thinking to thriving without me even realising that's what was starting to happen. I knew I needed to make a change. In fact, I knew it, and I knew it so deeply that I ran away from it in any way I possibly could. And when you see a vision of something that you want, or worse, you see a photo of your reality, something changes, or at least in my case it did. I don't know, friend, if you've ever had that moment, of, I absolutely cannot wait another second, this has to happen now. That's a little what it was like when I woke up after my 25th birthday, saw some photos, and by all means check my social media for seeing what some of those images of Lauren used to look like. And I said, what are you doing here, lol? And I reached out to AF, and from there life has never been the same since. Some headaches, some broken toes and tequilas, and some challenges and some wins and some hikes and some nights out and some everything's and anything's later. Jay knows more of my story than possibly anyone in some capacities, and is someone who I've always trusted, even when I couldn't trust myself. Coaching is new for me, and I think some of us are actually kind of born coaches. And what I mean by that is I've always kind of said that having a like-minded person around you is so powerful, because not only are you kind of connecting, you're also like going further, you're going higher, you're kind of creating something new. And that's what it was like in finding a mentor who I could think alongside with, who I could not just imagine things, but also share things as they would happen, as like genuine dreams were starting to turn into reality. And without sharing all our secrets, when it comes to even coming back on stage, coming back to theatre, coming back to acting, and all those what seem like small things that are actually the big things. None of that would have happened without finding a coach. And what I mean by saying some of us are born coaches, Jay is someone who, like me, in a different way though, can see something in other people that maybe no one else has spotted, who can see a behaviour or a habit or a pattern or trend or tendency or likeness in someone to something positive and to something negative that is going to change their future and maybe your future for either a positive or a negative at that. And as a teacher, as an educator, you know, I get to, and we get to, anyone else who's in the field, we get to show new ways and new things and instill a knowledge. The thing with a coach is you get to build that habit. That's the difference that I've learned anyway, and that's in my experience. And with AF, the habits that were being built from the get-go are not and were not quick fixes. It was the deep stuff. It was the thing that you don't want to do. But also you do because it was lasting and is lasting. So the idea that I didn't have to cut out anything, the idea that it would take a while, that I don't have to fixate, that I don't have to obsess, and I can let someone else do the thinking. That was the biggest game changer. When I took a little bit of a stint on my own in 2021 after training together for a year at that stage, I really realised how much thinking I had passed over and can pass over, and having a coach do that for me. And all things maths, basics of trying to add up what weights are what weights, letting someone else control, but also, I don't know if I've even the right word, letting someone else in, I suppose, is the simplest way of putting it, to your habits, into your life, into who you are, can, for anyone else like me, be a bit of a scary thing, but a bit of a conditioning that takes time to happen for whatever reason, for whatever experience you've had in the past, that causes a disconnect sometimes. It's no secret. Jay and I get head to head over the years and over the weeks and over the days. But I think that's a sign of strength than anything else. At least that's the way I'm putting it. I'm going to spin it anyway, Jay. I don't know anyone who I respect more and whose opinion I trust more than coaches, in the sense that if I'm out of line, he's the only one who's ever held up the mirror enough for me to see that. And equally though, if I'm in line and if I'm doing well, he's the first one who won't praise me. And that's okay too. And that means I don't have to be over-validated. So I don't know. I know not everyone listening is going to be on the same wavelength or stage of the journey or whatever it might be. But what I'm saying for anyone who's listening to my thoughts out loud right now is, if you've never had someone who has their eye on you and has their eye on you for good, what I mean good is as a positive, the coach-client relationship is a dynamic for a reason, and is something that, in my experience as a client and in my experience as a coach, and even in learning under, like with Jay Shetty and that, and kind of seeing things from a different perspective there as well, it's only something that brings a higher version of you if you choose to follow their program or you follow them. That's not to say that every coach you find is right for you. That's not to say every coach you find is even built for coaching. They might be built for mentoring or educating or something of some description, but a coach for you will bring you further than you've been yet, and they can only bring you as far as they've been themselves. In any experience I've had where coaching hasn't stuck for one reason or another, or whatever it might be, it's usually, not usually, actually that's a complete lie, it is 100% because they haven't gotten to where I want to go, or I'm actually further ahead than they are. And that's what kind of pulls me back a little bit. So that's a little tip for anyone listening. In dedicating this set of thoughts over to Sir, over to Coach, over to Jay, is to really say out loud for the 100th time, but in, I hope, maybe a new out loud way, that I could not have gotten as far as I am now without Jay and without AF and without team, even when I've been too afraid to share any or some parts of that more out loud than I could have done. And I hope, as Thinking of Me grows, and as I grow, and Jay, as you grow, that only deepens further still. So they're my thoughts. I'd like to kind of combine this with a thought on family roots, in the sense that I'm at home at the minute, and sometimes seeing things from a different perspective as you get older and as you deepen and as you grow. Yeah, kind of changes you again then. So it's cool. Growth is cool. They're silly thoughts. But they're real and they're honest and they're in the flow of the moment. So friend listening, thank you for being part of the Thinking of Me community. As I say, this could not have grown and would not grow without home roots and without Jay Farrell and AF365. If you want to see more, you can check out the show notes. And I'm looking forward to growing season 2 even deeper, even further, for you and with you. And I'll leave it there.